Gentes,
Here.
Commissioner Barnes,
Here.
Alderman Stralchuk,
Here.
Mayor Nurbin.
Here, we have a quorum, which is good. First up, we have approval of the minutes for July 25th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, corrections, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Minutes are approved. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have a driveway gate for Nofke Roofing, a 12-lot subdivision for the third phase of the enclave, 10 condominiums for the Highland Woods Park subdivision, the last phase of that, and a fill permit for Alex Lakin. Is there a motion? Anyone who would like to remove an item? Commissioner
I'd like to remove
Schaefer.
item D, please.
Remove item D? Okay. So I'd like to, anyone want a motion on the other items?
A through C.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of A through C, please say aye.
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 Okay, now we have item D for the fill permit.
Can I ask my question?
Sure.
So, just because the bluff has always, not always, the bluff continues to come up as a topic of discussion, in particular how it impacts the neighbors surrounding it, right? Most primarily with Concordia, because that was the largest bluff restoration we've had, but as well as other neighbors. So, and I see very clearly spelled out that it's the majority of the work that is done is not in our purview from a city perspective. Hi, Cole.
Hi.
What is in our purview?
Our purview would be DCD governs structures within. Oh.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, it's a staff question for now.
So the purview would be structures within 50 feet. Is that
75 feet. Any structure within 75 feet of the bluff falls under a zoning requirement. Anything that's on the bluff, if it's a structure, is not allowed. If they actually would build like steps into the bluff without being greater than 6 inches in height, it would meet our code, but they would have to get DNR approval for modification of that bluff. And then engineering has the approval for the fill permit because we're bringing in fill on the property.
Significant fill.
Yeah.
And actually, most of the quantity on here, it was like 7,370 cubic yards. Most of that is actually just earthwork on the bluff. So they're actually only importing about, I believe it was like 1,500-ish cubic yards. So a lot of it is just going to be
Displacement and
right. A lot of it's actually just like flat, reducing the slope of the bluff, kind of. And then we would only have purview above the kind of the high water mark of the lake. So once you get closer to the lake, then DNR takes a more active role, but their project still had to be reviewed by DNR as well.
I guess my concern, or what I want to go on record as saying is just recognizing the fact that we always have unintended consequences when we do anything with the bluff. And it sounds like the amount of jurisdiction that we have is relatively minimal. And so in this case, we're relying very much upon the DNR to make, and the Army Corps of Engineers, right, that to make sound decisions that we hope will not impact the neighbors.
And I got a question this week about, concern about work along the actual shoreline, just because, that can affect, other properties with the flow and stuff like that. But all of the work that this was proposed was just about 100 feet away from the water line and above, so it's not really impacting the shoreline.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Thank you, Cole.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Any last chance for comments? Or if there's a question? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. You're good to go. Happy bluff restoration. Next up, we have a policy item. This is a text amendment to allow vet clinics as a conditional use in the B1 zoning district, neighborhood commercial. And to table 58-5 517. This is allowing veterinary clinics as a conditional use. It's erroneously printed that this is specific to a property. It is not. This is just a policy discussion. We have one person who filled out a comment card, Amy Evans, who supports but does not wish to speak. So getting that out of the way. Is there any discussion or questions from the commission, or would you like a brief staff overview? Let's go for a brief overview.
Sure. I mean, the reason typically we put the policy items at the end of the agenda, we put this one on first because we have a follow-up item that is related to this item. So right now we have a request to do a veterinary clinic on Mequon Road, and it would require a change to the B1 zoning district. So we vetted our code. As it says in the report, vet clinics are permitted in the town center and arrival corridor and neighborhood commercial, and they're conditional in the B2. So we felt this would kind of fit in with the B2, and we felt the conditional use would be appropriate for this type of zoning district. It's basically the B1 is established to generate service and retail for the people living in the nearby areas. We feel that meets that need. We already have medical and dental clinics as conditional to B1, so we felt that this would go well with that. So we do recommend approval. This will require council approval in 2 readings, so the next item would not be in effect until that would take place, if it takes place.
Any questions or comments from the commission? I think this is pretty well written overall, and I think it's something we can definitely live with.
Need to move for approval?
Second.
That's a motion and a second. We are voting on this.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
It's a recommendation.
So there's a motion and a second. Any further comments? If not, well, this is policy. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Bach,
Aye.
Commissioner Becky Schaefer,
Aye.
Commissioner Lemke,
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Gentes,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin.
Aye. That policy is recommended onto the council. Next up, we have a public hearing. The first item is for the sister item to the last item we just spoke about. This is for R.A. Smith for Primus Companies. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant and building site plan approval to allow a 3,150 square foot veterinary clinic on the property located at 7625 West Mequon Road. Need a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak about this specific topic? Seeing none, is there a motion to close? Oh, there is one? Sorry, I missed you. Please come up to the podium, sir. Please just give your name and address so we can enter you into the record.
Dwayne Westerhausen, 7620 Kings Crossing Way. I live in the condominiums, Kings Crossing South, and I just have a couple questions whether there's going to be dog kennels outside, and if there are there going to be dogs in there all night barking? Because that would affect. I live right behind there, so that's my questions.
Okay, and we'll get to those in a second. We're just in the hearing part, so we'll listen, we'll respond when we get back into the regular session. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
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 We're back in regular session. Just take these one at a time.
I'll give you a report on the item, and then we can have a discussion if that's okay.
Okay. Well, let's take them up in order. We'll open up the public hearing for each in order. So are there any questions of the applicant or questions of staff for this item?
Well, this is a little different than council, so we take the item up individually and run it through the course. So is that what I'm not sure what you're
Yeah,
asking.
we're keeping going on this topic.
Yeah, sure,
Yep,
yes,
We're on
okay.
track. Yep.
I would just like to hear whatever Jack has to say.
Sure.
Well, if you need a staff report.
So again, this is a request for a veterinary clinic on Mequon Road. This veterinary clinic specializes in MRIs for small animals, mainly dogs and cats. To answer the question of the neighbor, there would be typically no boarding of animals other than ones that are recovering from surgery, and those would be indoors. They do have an outdoor area in the back. I have the site plan up there. There's an outdoor area in the back just to, take them out for bathroom breaks and things like that if they're in the building too long, but there will be no kenneling or boarding of animals overnight. The use itself, in terms of the site plan, meets most of our requirements. I did put a little bit of a scribbled drawing in there for you. I've talked with the applicant at length about these items. One of the things we'd like to see changed is there's the dumpster enclosure located in the front of the building. We're actually looking for that to get relocated to the back. They do show a future addition, and this was going to remain as non-paved, but they were okay with now moving that to the back area here and extending the pavement back there. So we're asking that to be removed, and then this will kind of free up some more space. And then this little island here, which is shown as striped, we're looking for that to be landscaped with some trees. Again, I spoke with the applicant about that. He was supportive of that. And then finally, adding a few evergreens. There is an existing tree line here, but most of that's deciduous, so we're just looking for some evergreen buffering to protect the neighbors to the west, which is a condominium development. So in terms of the site plan, I think we're pretty good shape. In terms of the building, we had a couple recommendations. The elevations in the plan were a little bit off in color. I do have some new ones I can show you as well. This is kind of the renderings. They look a little darker than I think they are. It's a lighter gray. Staff is requesting that the brick line that you see in the front that goes up to each corner, we're recommending that get carried throughout the remainder of the building. And then we're also looking for additional windows on the sides and rear. There's very little windows on the rear, and there's none on either of the sides. So we're looking to add some windows there. Again, I spoke with the applicant. They were looking into the potential of having those windows in one of the MRI rooms. I didn't know if that was an issue or not. He was going to look into that, but other than that, they're open to work with us on the elevations of the building. So with that, I guess I can give you a look of the new. So this is a little bit better picture. It kind of brightens it up a little bit, but we'll still require final samples of those brick and the siding just to make sure there's compatibility there. And if in the past, if you want to have our architects weigh in and meet us, we can kind of go over the decisive fenestration requirements on the sides and the rear at a later date, if that's okay. So, but with that, we do recommend approval according to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Commissioner Chorn.
With regards to the windows, I looked at the plan too, and I rather doubt you're going to be able to have windows in the MRI, and particularly the MRI equipment room. But they could put the windows with the spandrel glass in it, so it looks like a window. If that would work for you. But again, some of those rooms on the east side, the way the plumbing is in that one restroom, you can't have a window, so we're going to have to be selective as to where we can pop some windows in. So we can work with you.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Schaefer.
I was looking at this earlier. Is there an existing property here, or is this empty?
This is there's a
Residential?
it's a house, but it's been used off and on as a CBRF for
Yeah.
a number of years.
That's okay, thanks.
I think the house is in the ultimate road right away.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the road. Yeah, it sticks out pretty far. It's sandwiched between the gas station and the condominium development.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second.
If I could.
And I was going to say if the
Okay.
applicant would like to say anything or ask any questions.
There's just a couple items here. So Chris Hitch, Ari Smith, representing Primus Companies, who is representing the doctor who hopes to move to this clinic. A couple of items here in the comments, and they're all going to build on each other, and we just want to get this out to see if maybe there's a way that in the motion that's made here, in the way that we walk out of the room, there might be flexibility to work with staff on certain items that could impact the viability of the project. So things like the brick veneer around the building, things like adding windows throughout the building. Some of those are going to be hard to do just operationally, and the way the
motion would read right now. It's pretty directive, that this must be done. So if there's a way that the language could be to work with staff and architectural review to come to, mutually agreed upon additional architectural elements, something to that effect, that give it a little flexibility. And the engineering comments, there's reference to the water policy, and if you dive deeper in that policy, there's a chance that there's some public infrastructure improvement here. And I just want to bring attention to the fact that to even bring this project online and deliver this project, there is offsite municipal infrastructure need today. A little over 100 feet of water main extension coming from the west because water is not available at this property today, and it's not in front of the building today. There's real expense to that infrastructure improvement that would come out of the development cost for this and impact how many other things they could also do with the building architecturally, or at some point there is a limit to the budget on the build and the viability of the project. And that's where the ask is to just have some flexibility to be able to work with staff to come to these mutually agreed upon extra spends that will happen here that are being asked for, because they know right now they cannot do all of them. If all of them were to be requirements, or if this were to be done in such a way that had to happen, they don't believe they have a project. That's what I've been asked to.
So are the three main issues, I tried to jot them down as you were going, the brick all the way around?
It has to do with like the exterior architectural ads. We understand and appreciate, and moving the trash enclosure, that can be done. Putting in some of the pavement, because that might be needed in the future, that can be done. Reallocating and reconfiguring the front parking lot and adding some more landscaping in the front, adding some more along the side property line, that can be done. All of these things build on each other, though. So what's the priority? What are the absolutes? And we don't need to do that here or now, but if there can be just flexibility in any motions that's made here to be able to work with staff to determine those absolutes, that's what we're asking for.
Real quick, I'll get to you. So is the brick, the windows, and then is there a requirement to hook up to city water?
Well, yeah, it's not just like a requirement. There's a little bit of an unusual situation. So right now, water actually comes right through the center of these condominiums. So the policy requires to extend it not just to the parcel, but to extend it to the end of the parcel. And at the time, the condominium did not extend it to the end of their parcel, so the applicant's going to have to extend it about halfway through this parcel and then the full length of this parcel. Now, the ability to get a deviation from that is going through the Water Utility Commission. It's not the purview of the Planning Commission. So they can make an argument in front of the Water Utility, which is the council, to say, I don't want to have to run it to the end of that property. I want to basically take it just to the point where I could service the building, or I could take a lateral from this building and then run that to the main that's currently there. So those are options, but that would be vetted out at the Water Utility.
I just have a question. How did the previous property not extend it to the property line?
Well, I think our policy has changed, but as you recall also, this development actually is an L shape with a commercial building here, and the water actually comes down from Wauwatosa, and it goes this way and circles back, and then there's water across the street. And I've conversations with the utility. I think there's a lot of stuff up in this corner, and I think they preferred not to run water in that intersection. So I think I understand where they're coming from. They're going to have to run almost as much main to get to their property as they would if they had to do it if it was right at the property line. So, but then again, that's an issue for the utility to decide on. Obviously, I think our purview is the brick, and I think we should stick with the brick all the way around and get flexibility with the windows, and then hopefully the utility can grant them some leniency on the water connection.
I tend to agree. I think the windows are going to be tough given the use. I know the MRI room can't have those. If they are, they're going to be decorative only. I'm not sure anyone will really see them back there. And I agree the water utility might be sympathetic in this case to running it all the way to the edge of the lot line. So it'd probably cut the amount of pipe in roughly in half, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments from, I think Commissioner Strelchuk was first in line for some comments here.
Yeah. Thank you for the application for this, and, you know, I think it's a really good use for this location. You had unanimous support just for the use and, you know, in this area overall. Your ask was not unreasonable, but a little evasive. I'm gonna just share with you a bit of hesitation to say that we're gonna just turn it over to staff and you because they came forth with their recommendations here. And from just a policy standpoint, they do tend to vet out what they can on their own, and they come forward to the commission for the items that they want addressed, and that's just kind of the protocol and procedure that we usually follow. So if you need to button something down with staff, I guess, you know, we could always table this and bring it back up. To give you that flexibility. Again, we want to, you know, welcome you to the community, respect the fact that you want to build here, and, you know, give you an opportunity to work through the process with staff if you don't feel you got to that point. A lot of the staff requests I don't think are unreasonable. It sounds like we're working with you on water. It sounds like we're working with you already a little bit on windows. I personally didn't care for the exterior of the building without the brick on the bottom. It's not something that we're singling you out for and asking for here. It's something that just typically is asked for as something that we build, especially in this area. It gives a real, you know, it gives a high-end look. We're not asking you to brick the entire building. You know, again, I would stick up for you, you know, fiercely if that was the case. In a chair, that just was, you know, kind of an over ask. But you know, I think what staff's come forward with there is reasonable and respectful. And I think it does lend itself a little bit more to the architecture of the building, which is, you know, something that staff is always watching out for, as do we here on this commission. So all that just kind of in summary, I would be flexible with the water if that motion needed to be there, but I would make the statement that would need to go through the water utility.
Yeah, correct.
The windows, if we want to vet it out a little bit here and talk about if there is some flexibility, just kind of get it nailed down a little bit, find out if there is an option. If it's a sticking point, just kind of raise your hand and say, hey, I'd prefer to table it and bring it back up next month. And then if other commissioners disagree with me on the extra little brick on the exterior, it does add costs, and I sympathize with you there, but I think it really gives a nicer building, and quite frankly, the person developing the building and owning it in the end is going to have a more valuable building in the long run. So, you know, it's an investment in them as much as it is in the aesthetic of the community.
Commissioner Jordan.
You know, it sounds like there's enough variables here that you don't know the cost implications of, that maybe there needs to be time to flush these out to make sure that, you know, what we want they can afford. We certainly don't want to kill a project. You know, we can work things out, and maybe in that period of time you can get a better sense of what kind of water requirements and things like that. I'm maybe leaning back to what Alderman said. Maybe we need to table it while you flush out things that you've heard us say you want, so that you have a real project in the end. So I don't know.
Appreciate the offers. Don't wish to table.
Okay.
Understand what is likely, what the likely cost adds are. It will all hinge on the water. That can't be discussed tonight. Frankly, it may not be able to be discussed in the timeline that the project has to make that decision also, but again, it's nothing that this group can do tonight. We can't really discuss that tonight. So if it is the commission's recommendation, to follow staff recommendations, and that the architectural elements be added, and that's appropriate, and that's what Mequon wants to see. That's what you have to vote, and that's okay. And then the project will make the decision it needs to make on as soon as it has all of the information. But appreciate and understand the process that we could ask to table. We're not asking to table. It's most important that a schedule that is very much in motion continue in motion, and if it does not, that's probably even a larger hurdle.
Can we try to sewer?
Well, I too am not necessarily in favor of tabling because it drags the process out. I think for the commission, we've got 2 questions to ask, and then the others for a completely different body, but 2 of the members are on that body are also sitting here. So I think we've both signaled we're potentially sympathetic to the water issue. I think certainly extending it all the way to the other side may not be necessary in this case. That would significantly cut the cost of that item down. But we've got the brick in the windows. So just a straw poll, who's hard set on 4-sided brick per staff's recommendation? And the show of hands is all we need.
I just defer to Marty.
Well, Marty's got 2 arms.
Vote for him.
Go back to the rendering.
Marty's an architect. I'm not just randomly deferring.
Marty's a nice guy.
I think there might be enough change in plane in the front elevation, Jack, that maybe it comes around and it captures the front there, but then terminates where the door is on the left side there.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly where it comes back and meets the building on the other side, that maybe that front element is the brickwork, but then the balance is the siding.
Yeah, this is kind of my concern. This is the west elevation, and I guess I don't like this where it stops here. And so I think that you want to carry that west elevation, and if you do that, then it's almost makes sense to carry it around at that point. I think this is, it's a tough one for us as well. It's a balancing act. This property's been for sale since I think I've been working here. And so we'd like to see it redeveloped, but we don't want to do something that we end up regretting later as well. So I think, again, we support the brick. We'll work with them as much as we can on the windows. I mean, we can probably get the utility to maybe take action on this in October or November concurrent with the rezoning. So if there is an issue where the utility doesn't want to give them a waiver, you can always come back at that point and ask for some changes based on that issue. But I think we have enough time to get the water utility to weigh in, and that would help free up their budget numbers a little bit to help maybe give them the flexibility on these other issues.
Quick question.
Commissioner Lemke.
Can you go back to the picture where it shows the dumpster storage?
Oh, the site plan?
Yeah. So we're having them pave that side of the building just to get the dumpster in back?
Right. So this section here now it doesn't, I mean, you could do something else with some sort of treatment of pervious pavers or some other grass feature with support underneath it, but I just don't think that's going to work for a dumpster. I think you're going to need to get that paved.
So they're looking for that to just be grass and have the dumpster up front, was their original plan?
Well, the original plan was to have the dumpster located right in the front of the building and in the front of the parking lot, which we typically don't ever want to see. We don't want that to be the first thing you see from, this is Mequon Road, so we just felt that was way too visible in this spot right here. It also causes an issue if you'd have to kind of pull in somehow and back in. I don't know how you even get that trash in and out of there without maneuvering this parking lot. Pretty tough, even this way you're gonna probably have to kind of create a turnaround here and back in. So this does obviously add some expense, but they showed the future plan of a future addition and future parking, so that actually would fall in line well with what they're planning to do in the future. That's why we suggested it.
Could you go back to the elevation views?
Sure. So this is the newer one. This one shows more of the east side angle, but it doesn't show that west side angle.
To me, this looks pretty good. The brick goes almost all the way to the back. I'm not sure what it looks like from the west side.
The west was, let's see.
Those are updated from what we had in the packet, correct?
Yeah, well, they should be the same, it's just the coloration was different. So this is kind of the view from the corner here. So they're showing the brick terminating on this inside corner here. So this is all shown as this exposed siding. And I think this,
If that mimicked the other side, I mean, to me, it adds the visual appeal we're looking at that you can see from the road in the east and west, and then you could leave the back, potentially leave the back.
I think this is probably the most visible portion of it other than the front, because on the east side, there's a pretty significant tree line along the mobile property. But here, you're gonna have your driveway and you're gonna have this. So coming down Mequon Road, this is actually gonna be a highly visible elevation. So that's
I would
where.
stop well short of wrapping it all the way around the building. I don't know if anyone else is following what I'm saying, but
Jack, go back to the elevation of the west.
The other one?
Because the rendering shows it stops in that internal corner. If you go to the elevation of the west,
Yeah, you're talking over here, it goes all the way to the end of the bump out.
no, I'm talking on the other side, the west side.
Oh, the one I just set up?
But there was another one, the drawing elevation.
Oh, they actually, yeah, these are new, so,
See, they don't match.
yeah, they don't match. And this is something I just got within the last couple of days, so I guess we could get clarification on where that's supposed to be, because this is
if it looks like the picture there, I think that's exactly what I was just hinting at. It's kind of hard. We got different versions of the same building, all in the same packet, but I think
They don't match.
that to me would meet the minimum I'm looking for. And then I think we can have flexibility on the windows, and then the water thing, that's for a whole other board and commissions. Commissioner Schaefer, or Holly, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if it basically wraps the front and then the front of the east and west sides exactly like it is here, I'm fine with that. Honestly, anything is gonna look better than the building that is there currently. So, I mean, whatever.
That's a bit of a stretch. No, you're right. So I'm not sure how we make a motion.
Windows, do we need to talk about windows, or no?
I'm comfortable working that item out with staff. It's kind of the technical standards for the MRI room are going to make it virtually impossible to have a real window.
Right.
So I'll make a motion. Approve per staff recommendations with the exception of sending it to review to the water utility district to see if we can go only partially into the property due to the fact that water may not be planned for the corner of the intersection of Mequon and 76th Road, 76th Street, or Mequon and Wauwatosa. What did I cover? Windows to be discussed with staff and worked out with staff, so there's flexibility there. And did I cover the brickwork or not? Because I was hung up
Not
on
yet.
the water. And then the brick as shown in the elevation, that elevation right there on page.
Well, this is just a separate attachment, so it's page
Yeah.
one.
I think this is more up to date than what's in the packet.
Yep, I'm comfortable with that.
So do we want that terminating at the inside corner there, Marty, you think? I think so too, yeah. Okay.
Well, the inside corner of the
Oh, the back, yeah,
little wraparound.
yeah.
I don't think we need brick for the dumpster area.
No, that'll just be something that matches the building.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all is in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
I hope we can make something happen. We'll see you at the Water Commission. Next up, we have another public hearing for Living Life a la Mode LLC. Applicant is seeking a conditional use grant approval to allow for a fitness center for the property located at 10000 North Port Washington Road. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of entering public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
You're in public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this topic? Please come up to the podium, sure. Just give us your name and address.
She's the one that wants to,
Oh, are you the applicant?
she's the applicant.
Okay, she's the applicant. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, is there a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we're back. Lori's handling this one? Okay, Lori.
Yep,
please
go
take it
easy on
away.
me, guys. Thank you.
Put your hands
This proposal is for a 1,100 square foot workout facility. It's going to offer classes, workshops, and retreats. The proposed hours of operation are from 6 in the morning until approximately 8 p.m., just depending on the class size and schedule. Each class will have a capacity of 20 to 25 students, and classes are offered both in person and online. The business will operate with just one employee running the class, so there will be no additional employees on site. The analysis for the conditional grant showed that the activity should not have negative impacts to the public health, values of adjoining properties, and is also compatible with the area in which it's located. There were several site compliance issues that were noted in your packet. These include signage that does not meet code, deteriorating exterior facade, missing and unkept landscaping, unpermitted outdoor storage, deteriorating parking lot conditions, and damaged garbage enclosures. So you'll find in your packet that staff has made several recommendations on how to correct these issues. And of course, we are always willing to work with the applicant on timeline and how we can achieve this. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Schaefer and then Commissioner Bach second.
Aren't a lot of these compliance issues, I assume this is not a building that's owned by the applicant, but a rental, and so aren't a lot of them the landlord's issues to deal with, and how do we go about addressing that with the landlord?
Sure. So the conditional use grant is actually going to the landlord,
Okay,
and then the applicant is just taking use of that.
so the landlord is aware of all of these things?
We did provide it in the packet for him.
You're the landlord?
I just found out about that.
Oh,
Some of the issues,
hi.
the landscaping issues, were actually, the city came in and took out all of the landscaping that was in front of the building as part of the project for the highway and stuff like that.
Ugh.
And they also removed the monument sign. There used to be about a half a dozen trees going across, and then the grass came up to the parking lot. And they took all of that out, and then because a lot of people, when they turned around, they drove on the grass, we added some, they're called ballast stones, the old stones from the ships when they came back. And they look like cobblestones. We added some of those just so that we wouldn't have people driving on the grass. But then the city was supposed to put the trees back in, but they did flower bed. And what we were going to do is restore it back to the way it was originally. They did plant some trees over there, but the landscaper had the trees on site for too long, and by the time they planted them, the roots dried, and then the leaves all fell off. And so there's some shuffling to do with that, but I'm working on getting that restored. There was damage done in the parking lot from We Energies because they also had to move gas lines because of the highway project. And they did fill in the holes that they did make, but they added some cracks to the parking lot and stuff. But after all of that highway construction is done, then I want to just redo the parking lot and start from scratch. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, but we're getting it done.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were the landlord. Okay, I think that was my question. These are all things that will be in process, and she's allowed to still take occupancy and move forward, even if these are
Correct.
not immediately addressed.
Correct. There's compliance deadlines for all of these, and there is a approved landscaping plan that was post some of the activity he was talking about that was supposed to be achieved and never was.
I see all the dates. Okay, thank you.
And we're generally pretty reasonable on the timelines for correcting some of those things.
Especially if it's related to The never-ending construction.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't want to put anything in and have it then further damaged by construction.
Right.
Hopefully that'll be ending soon, but it'll never be soon enough.
No, then they'll change their mind and redo the highway again.
I hope not. I'm on the other side of the I-43 war zone, and it's a challenge. Commissioner Bach, I think, was next.
Same question.
Same question?
Yep.
Great minds think alike. Commissioner Strelchuk.
Signage condition's okay?
Pardon?
The signage condition is okay?
Yeah, the original signs there, and the last new tenant in there was a travel agency, and they were still the box signs. And then the city approved them replacing the insert in the box sign on that one, and so they're all still box signs. When the lighting was calculated for the parking lot, they included residual lighting from the box signs. When the city replaced the 2 light poles, they replaced them based on the box signs being there. Those were just put in, I think, 2 years ago, or whatever, when they did the project, a year and a half ago, something like that. So I'll probably, if they change it to channel lettering, I'm probably gonna have to take those light poles out and put something in that's stronger. But, you know, either that, or if she gets approved for replacement of the insert on the box sign, then we can leave them the way they are.
Staff, we need to button that up today, because we've got,
There was a sign waiver that was brought to Plan Commission back in 2011 that failed to allow for those box signs. So I'm not really quite sure what history has happened between then and now.
so essentially we've got a sticking point at the box signs, correct?
Correct.
The box signs have been not permitted for a long time, and so, and I'm not sure who made the decision on lighting and light poles versus, because we typically won't use a box sign to illuminate a parking lot, so. But I think we want to just, we always try to end the nonconformity of having box signs, and if it happens slowly over time, we have to start somewhere, and so that's where I think we're going with this.
So your preference is the channel lettering?
Commissioner Chorn.
So there would be channel lettering potentially for her, but the other ones could remain as box signs.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really put down the hammer. I mean, we gotta switch over at one point unless the owner of the building is willing to switch them all out. I mean, sometimes it just takes time to get to compliance with the whole building, and it, you know, does take sometimes years, but I mean, it's a start. So I think we have to kind of bite the bullet and try to get into compliance as best we can.
I'm sure the ones that are up there are probably grandfathered in from when the building's built.
Yeah, they've been there.
So, are there any further questions of staff?
My plan down the road is to update the whole front anyway. I was just waiting for the construction project to be done because it creates a lot of problems over there.
I certainly understand
And
that.
there's,
If there's no further questions, let's call the roll on this item.
How do we want to construct a motion?
Do we have a motion in a second, or is that my premature? I don't
No,
think
we
we
need
have a motion.
we need a motion to take into consideration the conversation we had about the parking lot timeline. Just, you know, sounds like everything still needs to be done. Yes? Is that what we're agreeing? But the timeline is, you know,
well,
based
a
on
lot of the
43?
repairs, like when We Energies went in there to redo the gas lines going underneath where the freeway is, they repaired the areas where they dug out, but they didn't repair the areas where their equipment damaged the parking lot.
And how are you addressing that
The,
currently?
the bulk of the damage is actually in the rear of the building, away from the road. And you can actually see it in the picture behind you, the lower left one, a little up there. Thank you. So that's the rear of the building.
That's the rear. We were gonna have the company come through to do that. It's getting kind of late in the year for this one because they're kind of backed up a little. But and on the one on the right, you can see where we put the ballast stones down, and then in front of it, you'll see some cracks. That was when We Energies redid the gas lines going underneath the freeway.
And remind me again of the dates. They're in there. I just didn't want to page through it. Sorry.
It's hard to sort and read.
Parking lot was September 1st.
Of 2023. So it
23.
is a year out.
Yeah, almost all of them are between 6 months to a year out, depending on the severity and, of course, the associated cost. We don't want to burden the landlord.
So maybe if there's a motion that offered some flexibility based off of construction activities around the site, but not necessarily on the site.
So I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations while allowing some flexibility due to the I-43 construction on timeline,
Second.
but not 3 years flexibility.
Is it specific enough?
Does that capture the essence of it? I mean, a year is pretty reasonable. We might have to push it out based off of what's going on over there, but
So not to exceed an additional 6 months. Do you need that in the?
Staff is always willing to work with our residents on these timelines. We understand sometimes there's just constraints such as getting workers to come and in this case, of course, construction. So we'll be willing to work with them.
Yeah, I would be careful with the 6 months because once you get past next September,
then you're in another year. Yeah.
Maybe just add
So you want to just say 2024?
I think that would be better.
So I'll switch the motion to 2024.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff that, like that trailer, that's not even there. I don't know when the pictures were taken.
That was taken this last week.
Okay, I mean, it was only there for a couple of weeks because we were moving some equipment out of there. But that's not there anymore.
So you're aware of all the compliance issues that staff brought
Well,
to your attention?
She told me about it about an hour ago.
I think we're trying to say yes.
We are
Wanna
trying
give us
to
a kick
prove
at that
that.
can?
And I'm like, what trailer? Oh, that one, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we're trying to take a vote on this. We got a motion and a second on the
that's
table.
good.
Yeah. Do we have a second?
I think we do.
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do now. Slacker.
All right. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bach.
Aye.
Commissioner Becky Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemke.
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Gentis.
Aye.
Alderman Stralcheck.
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
Motion passes.
Yeah.
Welcome to.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good luck.
Have a great
I'll wave when I go get my hair cut. So I go there every 6 weeks or so. Next up, we have Ozaki Country Club. Applicant is seeking a conditional use grant amendment and building site and plan amendment approval to allow for a 11,400 square foot building and parking area. The property located at 10823 North River Road. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of entering public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none.
Close.
Motion.
Motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second. Was there someone?
Yeah. Can you? Wait a minute.
Yeah, please come up. I just didn't see your hand. It's okay.
You okay? I'll give him my paper copy if you want to see.
Sure. Yeah. We'll definitely get to the plans in a minute. Is there a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Motion second.
Motion and a second. All those in
We already
favor,
did
please say aye.
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 We're back here. If there's a question that comes up, you'll be able to speak later. It's not your only chance. Quick staff report, please.
Sure. Like you said, this is an 11,000 square foot building on the northeast corner of the property. It's supposed to be used for the greenhouse, maintenance facility, office space, staff areas, equipment storage, and service areas. The building design is pretty simple. It's a green metal panel roof with beige metal wall panels. This doesn't match the existing accessory structure that was just constructed 3 years ago on the property, so staff is recommending that the roof line change to match the other structure. The location of the structure contains a steep grade, so as you can see, the building is actually constructed into the hillside, so the overall height is only 38 feet, but on the other side, built into the hill, it's only about 12. On the south elevation, you'll see 10 skylights on there. That's exactly where the greenhouse will be. And then there's a bank of windows. When you look at the east elevation, you're going to notice that there's just basically one solid wall, and staff is recommending that that wall get broken up. An addition of 2 windows will be situated, hopefully next to the far north wall. Thank you. That's helpful. We did have quite a few issues with the site plan. Mostly what's going on is that currently there's 2 buildings in this location, both of them, oh, if you could stop for a second. So as you can see that they're very close to the right-of-way. The required right-of-way is 50 feet ultimate right-of-way, followed by a 60-foot setback. The southern building is only 20 feet away from that ultimate right-of-way. So that's one issue. So staff was willing to work with the applicant on putting a new building. However, they are not meeting that setback again. And so our applicant went and provided quite a few alternative locations and stated why they would not be able to meet those setbacks, including the tee box, which is directly behind the proposed building. They also cannot expand the new northwest corner building because of the residents adjacent to it. They felt that that would create too much noise for the residents, and so they felt this was the best option for them. The other issue with this site plan is namely the parking lot. When staff spoke with them, the parking was in the ultimate right-of-way. We have no approval on file for this ever to occur in the first place. And when staff spoke with them, we made it very clear that while we don't want them to increase the encroachment, staff felt that we would support it staying the same. Unfortunately, it came to light today that the parking lot did get expanded, so what was only 14 parking spaces is now being shown as 17. We understand the applicant does want to actually amend the plan again and create 30 parking spaces on that side, so that would go all the way up that hillside. The hillside right now is also currently being used for a significant amount of outdoor storage, which staff would like to see being removed. Namely, it's a lot of lumber being stored in the right-of-way. So just a couple issues to deal with. Another thing that came up was the northwest corner building as a compliance issue is that there is a slab that was poured on the property. The slab was approved, and this is not shown on this slide, but unfortunately that slab was poured into the right away from Mequon Road, and now walls are constructed around it, so they are being used right now for outdoor storage of gravel, sand, etc. And there's a lot of deliveries, I guess, coming back and forth, so the neighbors have been bringing that to our attention in the last few days. Other than that, overall, we did support the design of the building. We just would like to see some of the compliance issues taken care of.
Thank you. I guess we'll have to talk about parking in a moment. Are there any other comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Strelchak.
Yeah, I was invited out to the site and walked it with the applicant, and I see a lot of what they're talking about over there with concerns.
Can I just ask a favor that everybody talk directly into these lousy microphones so we could hear?
Sure, I can
some
jack
of
the
this
volume up
stuff.
too.
Direct, straight in. Doesn't work on an angle.
Yeah.
Lambo.
There, no, it's definitely louder now.
So anyway, I walked the site with the applicant. I see where they're coming from on the requests. I think the staff recommendations that it shift back on the tee box. I've golfed that course. It's been, oh God, at least 10 years since I've golfed the course. You know, what you have here, in my opinion, is that, you know, a golf course is one of the greater assets for the community. The homes on a golf course go for the best and highest value. It's great use of green space because it is essentially all green space. The golf course design and construction is a very expensive process. So to ask them to shift the essence of what those members are paying to go do to shift a building back a little bit more is a challenge, and I get that. They've been in the site for, how many years have you been in that site?
100 years this year.
Yeah, 100 years. And that building's been there, you know, practically, yeah, longer, probably. I don't agree with trying to add additional buildings over by the other homes on the other corner. I really don't want the maintenance staff going in and out on Mequon Road. I think it's a detriment to safety. And I think if you're getting deliveries, having a dump truck stop dead center on Mequon Road to back in, or having to pull in and turn out and then try to pull out, you know, with high school traffic coming and going, I think it's just going to be overburdensome. And those deliveries do come, you know, kind of early. Understanding the outside storage, you know, I did see that, and I do want to see that just not overly visible from the street. We talked with the applicant; they're open to shifting it on an angle, as long as you can get access in and out with the dump trucks, you know, in and out. The deliveries will be pretty extensive during certain times of the year, and then it's going to sit pretty much for another good chunk of the year. They're not going to be hauling sand to sand traps, you know, 24/7, 365. You know, they're going to go in and do their spring, their fall maintenance, and then they're going to do some maintenance after a rainfall. So the parking, I get it. I agree with you. I just can't, after being on the site, offer a different spot. And I can't agree with putting them up on that hill, because that hill is super steep. And then if you have to take out any trees, my preference is definitely to see this screen from Mequon Road, this building screened from Mequon Road, and then remain screened from River Road. So it's just a little feedback from actually like walking the site. You know, a lot of us go out and we go and look at it. And, you know, I had a nice tour with the applicant, and we did get to go through it. So I'm willing to be flexible as long as it's respectful to neighbors. And if there's something that we need to build in for that right-of-way parking to address the fact that there may be concern on that road expansion, let's just at least get the language either in the approval or in a motion, you know, to address that effectively. I think that's probably the biggest concern here. And then, you know, I'm glad to see them expanding. I'm glad to see that they're still in business. I'm glad to see that this property is remaining a beautiful golf course and an asset and a jewel to the community. So,
Can I make one comment or question? We're only asking for 7 more parking spaces than the plan that you recommended approving here.
Yeah, let's get that nailed down. I think we heard some different numbers.
Sure. So when, I do have some photos taken from today that show that there was exactly 14 parking spots. And then with what was proposed, and unfortunately this is not in your staff reports because they provided this to us on Friday, they were showing 30 proposed parking spots. So that would be.
Yeah, where is that? That's not it. That's your background.
I was on the site Friday morning, and are there 14 spots there now? I didn't count the cars, but
I didn't count, but I can tell you from the one that they recommended approving to the one that I'm asking for, there's 7 more. The issue just
what's
is,
the total?
It's 30.
I believe there's
From 14 to 21?
There's 30 shown on the plan.
How many?
30. On the plan that you have in front of you, it's 17.
During the season, we have up to 25 plus employees. Right now, we have,
Yes.
you know, we have room for maybe 14 spots, and people have to park on the grass where it's not safe for them to be parking. They're in a line of tee shots, so that's why we're asking for additional space.
And because of ADA, we have to have 2 handicap spots, which is really 3 normal spots. And unfortunately, we don't have any handicap employees right now to park there.
So if you have 14 now, you're asking for 30?
with including the 2 handicap, is that?
I'm counting 27 here. I'm not sure where the 30 is
The
coming.
plan that was provided to us had 30.
At 30?
My community
show it on
development director
screen?
and I went in
Well,
and counted it twice.
It's new beyond what was in the packet for last week, so it might be difficult.
Correct.
But I did go out there on Friday, and the parking lot was already full, and there were cars parked down below the tee box, which are they're on the grass, which we don't typically like anyway, and they're also in harm's way of getting hit with a golf ball. And I had one question for staff regarding the right-of-way. There's some back and forth. It appears to have gone to 50 feet at some point, but it may not have been 50 feet forever.
Well, the ultimate right of way has been around for a long time, 30, 40 years at least. But we typically only get that right of way when the dedication is done, a CSM or a plat of something. So right now, as you can see, I pulled up the GIS for you. So right now, as you can see, their property line legally technically goes to the center line, where we have the statutorily 33 feet for maintenance purposes. But our ultimate right-of-way for this is 50 feet, and that's where the setback's supposed to start from. And the reason for that is, different for different roads, but more than likely at a 50-foot ultimate right-of-way, there's contemplation of additional bypass lanes, turn lanes, and things like that. And if you go further south down this road, there are areas that use up the entire ultimate right-of-way. So I understand, and we're trying to be flexible with them as much as possible, but the issue here is that if we approve additional parking in there, you're kind of pushing it down to the next group to deal with, because if that intersection ever does need to be widened, then we're either going to have to widen it, and then you're going to have zero to no buffer between the parking lot and the road, or we're going to have them at that point relocate and take out parking. And so, the code requires all developments for new development and remodeling to take into account that ultimate right of way as best as possible. I mean, if it's a new development, there's no choice. You start from that ultimate right of way. Now, I understand this has been here a long time. So we're trying to, there's a balancing act again. So we're trying to help as much as we possibly can, but there's a big concern of expanding parking areas in the ultimate right of way because of the future impacts it could have. Now, this road could never expand, and I guess we would never have this issue, but, it could again, intersection improvements or other things like that could occur that would impact this development.
Jack, can you go back to the site plan?
Sure.
So we're talking about those parking stalls that are along River Road, right?
Correct.
Functionally, they'll all end up in the 50-foot ultimate right-of-way.
Right.
But they're there now and have been there for, I don't know how long, probably
about 20 years.
About 20 years.
I'm not familiar with the topography, but what other option do you have to put the parking stalls?
There is some options just to the south where they expanded their driveway southward, but it would come nowhere near to be able to provide 14 spaces.
Anything to the south would be liable for tee shot to hit.
Yeah, the tee is kind of right off the back of the southern end of the building, so anything within a few degrees each way, you're right in the way.
Correct, and that's why they put the bins there too, hopefully that would serve as a buffer.
Do we actually have a view of the final plans that we can get up on the screen, or?
Of the ones that were submitted after the packet went out?
Correct.
We don't.
Or are they all paper only and no?
I think
I have enough copies for everybody if you want to see it.
Let's pass those around then, because it's hard to talk about the abstract. This will be officially Exhibit A if we make a motion for anyone's reference.
You're gonna share with me, aren't you?
Thank you.
first question is, what do you have to remove for trees? Because when you and I talked, you weren't considering additional parking beyond what we talked about.
Staff had suggested possibly going to the north of the building, up on the high side between Mequon Road and the building. And that's all mature trees on that end, a lot of screening between there. And then we'd have to remove a lot of that to put the parking area in the drive.
Yeah, I understand, and we went over that when I was on site. That's not what I'm asking. The difference is between what the packet shows for parking and then what Exhibit A is showing for parking, with a black circle around it with additional parking spots. And I'm asking you and staff, what, if anything, would be needed to be done from a tree removal standpoint? One of the reasons I was so supportive of this is, they're trying to fit what they can in the space that they have, but I really like that screening on the corner to the maximum amount possible, because I didn't feel the residents would really see a lot of what, the expansion there, and I think it would still look discreet. It wouldn't look like a big warehouse. If you remove trees on that corner and added parking, and there was a significant removal of trees, I would have some concern with that, and maybe not recommend the parking, but still be supportive of the project.
Yeah, I don't think we've vetted that out at this point.
Okay.
We wouldn't be moving any screening along between River Road and the 7 additional parking spots.
You can make that part of your
That would
motion.
that screening would still be there.
Yeah, we have the envious job of trying to build a building that the golfers don't want to see, the people driving by don't want to see. And what we really tried to do is we dropped the ceiling, we dropped the building height along River Road, so we kind of buried it in the hill so you're not going to see it there. But then we tried to keep all that screening that we could, especially on Mequon Road, so that you don't see it. Hopefully you won't see this building driving by, except for before the trees start growing with the screening that we do have to take out, because we're moving the driveway south to hide it better.
Yeah, just so we're clear, my concern is the screening between River Road and the building to take into account for the additional spots, not the Mequon Road one. I'm not recommending we put any up the hill at any point.
I think that I'd like clarification. So these extra spots that are circled in black, do you have to cut trees out to put those spots in, or what's there right now?
There's a few trees and just firewood stacked there now, but the trees that would be cut out would not be opening it up to River Road.
What are the trees that are there right now?
It would be that wood stack right there on the bottom, and then going up.
So there would be some removed.
Yeah, I don't think we could answer this until we had an answer what trees you're looking to cut out. Somebody would have to go look at those.
And are those 5, I mean, for future, if there's something that happens at that intersection that you were talking about, how many of those parking spaces would you be concerned about? Is it those 5? Or
But we don't really know.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know. I mean, odds are it's never going to be a 4-lane road, but we have no idea what the geometric, changes to that intersection will be. So it could be a couple, could be more, or it could be where we don't impact the actual parking themselves, but then we take on all the buffer between the parking lot and the road, which is probably just as bad.
Right, so I was just thinking about not doing, if you didn't do those 5 and you have to worry about the trees, what would that impact on the parking? You take away 5 parking spots, but could you still manage?
And what I would say is we'd like to get what's approved in their pack that they said they would approve, then work with them on the additional 7 spots. And if that works for them, it works for us. We hope to get a couple extra parking spots. Otherwise, reality is those handicap spots, they're never going to be used anyway, because it's a maintenance facility.
Right.
But I'm trying to
Got it.
make sure that Dan doesn't come back to me 10 years from now and say they're parking all over the grass again. That's really what I'm trying to avoid here, because.
Right.
And the only other comment that I really have is staff recommendation number 1. Can I have 90 days, please, instead of 60? Because I still got to get Ozaki Country Club board approval and member approval, plus your approval, and it may take a little bit more than 60.
I think that's reasonable. Another 30 days. So it's really looks like there's 7 spots north of the handicap accessible spots that are potentially in flux. So if someone wants to make a motion, we could leave those up to further staff review, and if we need to come back here, we always can. But I'd like to find a way to make this, I really don't want to table it on the applicant and hash out more parking details and kick this down the road another month.
Go for it. Okay. I'd like to make a motion for approval per staff recommendation. Item A, you said? Wine, to give the applicant 90 days instead of 60. To allow for the Exhibit A parking with the condition that no trees are removed to accommodate for those. If there are issues, the applicant will work that out with staff or bring just the parking portion forward to Common Council at a future, or to Planning Commission at a future meeting. So essentially what we're voting on is that voting for approval with parking, but if there's issues and a disagreement, the parking portion would come here, not the full building.
We think that's more than fair.
Okay, so not a specific number of stalls removed, but you can put as many up there, not exceeding the plan, but if there's trees to be removed, then those parking stalls are kind of off the table. Is that the motion?
Correct.
Okay, just so people understand.
Yeah, and I'll just keep beating this horse to reiterate it. I don't, this is not necessarily a friendly amendment, this is a clarification. I think we're approving as this plan is in our packet with the change of the 60 to 90 days.
And
not approving this.
And Exhibit A.
I think
Exhibit A.
we officially labeled this Exhibit A as handed out to us, because it's the parking lot configuration is a little different than what you saw in your packet.
Yeah. Yep. I thought we were okay.
Only if they don't take any tree trees.
Okay.
No tree removal, so the screening wouldn't shift. And we have one person that just walked to the podium. Do you want to wait on the vote?
Sure, we can. Well, we just have a motion. I don't even think we have a second yet.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. A comment or question?
Yes, with regard to parking, my name is Sarah Severson. I live at 4223 West Scenic Avenue at the corner of Scenic and River Road. We're proud members of the Mequon community and have lived here more than 30 years. My concern, has there been DNR analysis of the drainage related to extra concrete and extra parking and a greenhouse associated with this facility? As you know, there is a lift station that's at the corner of River and Scenic, and I can tell you the Mequon Public Works Department is there on a very regular basis with any more than an inch of rainfall. I would suggest that we get a DNR analysis of the drainage impact with extra concrete at the site, in addition to a larger building and its impact on drainage in the area.
Thank you.
Jack, does the additional pavement and building size kick into?
There'll be stormwater management. We'll go through our typical process, which involves MMSD, DNR, things like that.
Okay, so it sounds like that aspect of the project is inherent to the project as proposed. Typical stormwater drainage analysis.
I was going to mention that you guys are just subject to a GI plan right now, which is
Sure,
I never get the mic. I never get the mic.
It's the microphones. It's
the
not.
mics are wacky. You'll get really close to it.
Yeah. So you guys are just subject to a GI plan right now, which is just you're just installing that rain garden per your plan currently. So with the additional, I haven't seen the additional parking, haven't looked at that plan at all. That might trigger more stormwater management on the site. So that should be something. I mean, that doesn't have to be a condition. That's what everyone's held to. So I just want you guys to be aware of that.
And we understand that.
Yeah, there's a standard formula for the amount of impervious surface added for all new developments. So that is kind of covered in our code now, whereas in the past, many years ago, it may not have been. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that passes.
Welcome to the community.
We're looking
Happy
forward to the
centennial.
next 100
100
years. Thank you very
Um,
much.
Let us know how the parking turns out with the trees, please.
I have not had time to talk to Lori because I missed both.
Oh, that's okay.
Next up, we have regular business. First item is Mark Hilgendorf. Applicant is seeking a minor request for a 2,520 square foot accessory structure for the property located at 11819 West Mequon Road. First, we need to remove this item from the table if we're to take it up. Is there a motion to remove it from the table?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of removing from the table, please say aye.
Aye.
This motion is now, or matter is now in front of us. So why doesn't staff catch us up from where we left off 2 months ago?
Sure. So the size has changed since the last time we've talked about this. It went from 2,100 square feet up to 2,520 square feet. This is primarily due to the property owner getting a better deal on a larger size for the same cost. The materials are still of temporary nature, so that has not changed at all. The only thing that we've now learned is that this is something that's easily expandable as well. When you last heard this item, you requested that the location change or potentially screened and the color of the structure change. So Mr. Hilgendorf has changed the color to gray for the canvas, and the location has moved 3 feet. Staff does feel that there are other opportunities on the lot for this structure that will still meet some of Mr. Hilgendorf's concerns, such as having driveway access, being too close to his livestock, and removal of pasture lands and trees. We still think we can potentially achieve a better location that's not going to hinder the next door neighbor who is here tonight in opposition. Short and sweet.
Okay. Before I forget, I will note that we did get one comment card maybe from that same neighbor. Kurt Lewesh opposes and wishes to speak. So before we get too much farther, let's give him the opportunity to speak. Please come up to the podium. Yeah.
Okay, I looked at the drawing and the dimensions. So there's a couple of concerns I had was that the location written on the sketch does not match the distance dimension of 740 feet from the property line, the east property line of 11521 West Mequon Road. So if you look at the 740 feet, that puts it more closer to the property line between 11805 and 11623. So the location to me is pretty uncertain. This would place its structure immediately in the view of our property. The other thing is regarding the size. If you visualize the size of this, 20 feet tall is about to where this woodwork is up here. 40 feet, the width of this room is about 50 feet. So it's a quite large structure. So 7 foot tall pine trees really would be minimal coverage, which was your counter proposal on that. The structure is not a very architecturally desirable thing to look at, and I think it would set a precedent for Mequon for other commercial properties as well to start putting these large tents basically up. So again, biggest concern I have is really pinpointing where this is going. My drawing right here, I propose a couple alternatives. Because again, if you look at the 740 feet dimension right there, that puts it more in between my property and the property next door. I mislabeled it as 11823. It's actually 11623. if they could keep it on the west property line between 11805 and the adjacent farm, that would keep it out of view, and possibly shrink the size of it. And then again, the pine trees, if the structure, I don't know if it's still being proposed as a temporary 10 to 15 years, but a 7-foot pine tree doesn't cover anything up. And again, visualize it that 20 feet is about the size up to that woodwork up there.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Now back to the commission. Commissioner Bach?
Yeah, Jack, maybe, and I think I read that in your notes too, concerns about precedents for the, can you give some examples on, if the commission approves this, what potentially could happen down the line?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're obligated in the future, but I think it's gonna be difficult to say no to them in the future. And, we do have this threshold of 1,000 square feet requiring PC approval for this very reason, so that when these larger buildings get built, we want some architectural detail to them. And this is something, again, that we haven't really seen, at least the time I've been here, I haven't seen any of these as far as being built in Mequon. So I think there is a concern for that. Now, again, there's ways to mitigate it. You could, again, relocate it so it's less impactful to any surrounding neighbors. You could reorientate it so that the profile is different. You can do landscaping. I will say that, I know 7-foot trees don't sound like a lot, but they will grow, and we don't expect the trees to screen right away. We'll expect them over time, but, that's kind of a third tier level of protection. We'd still prefer it to be a different material, a nicer material, and then in a better location before we get to that third level of screening, so.
And to address a comment made earlier, this wasn't being considered for all commercial areas of Mequon, only rural agricultural areas where they were generally, well screened from public view for the most part. Trying to have some sympathy for the current state of farming and wanting to keep that viable in Mequon as much as we can, and building cost as a component to that. So I don't see broad adoption. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. So if you can, in my mind, if you could kind of meet those things, there might be some room for this. But ultimately, the commission has to decide. I don't get the only vote. But I think that captures the nature of where we left off last month, was trying to find some middle ground for that.
Are they open to a location change, one of these other locations?
There was a proposal to put it south of that other, my pole shed. Well, that's a cattle yard. And then right kitty corner, I'm only about 10 feet, maybe 15 feet from the corner of the cattle shed to a ditch. So if I made it go straight south, I'd be in the ditch. That's the main waterway. I take water all the way from Germantown and comes through our property and ends up back in Washington County. I'm stuck with the water, so I can't move the ditch. And if I go further east and I'm in the woods, I don't want to cut trees down. I lost hundreds of trees to the ash. And back there, I'm on rock. And plus I can't get to it unless I go through the cattle yard and the pastures and be all mud. I'm trying to do a minimum impact to driveways. I don't want to put more gravel down. I can drive across from that pole shed into that shed for my machinery storage. I mean, I put that pole shed up back in 1989 when I had a 4-row planter. Now I got a 12-row planter. Machinery's getting so big. That's the only reason I need the space.
Commissioner Lemke.
I just have a couple comments. I think you hit it that we need to do something to keep farming viable, and we need an economical alternative for something that is more temporary. I'm not going to ask Mark how old he is, but
I could be here forever.
But I hope he has 20 years of farming left in him, but probably not 20. So I think this fits that need. I also think it doesn't stand out as being an odd building for a farm these days. If you drive around in rural areas, these are very common structures for farms to utilize now, as they need a little more room for storage. He's not going to be putting cattle in it, but you see a lot of these types of buildings for agricultural animals. So I don't think it looks out of place on a farm, so I don't think it's going to stand out as somebody driving by and it's gonna look unattractive for a farm. So those are my comments.
Commissioner Jordan.
Jack, help me understand, there's been so many sketches with different dimensions and the comments made by the applicant with regards to not being able to place it in an alternate position. Help me out here on the site plan where we're talking.
So I think, well, there was a suggestion to put it back in this area here, Junior, the pointer.
Right.
So there was a, and then makes, you obviously can't go back there, there is that stream there. I think where the staff was recommending that it would be aligned basically north to south as far back off the property as possible where she's pointing right now. I think that would be an area that, number one, the profile would switch because it would go north to south. Number two, if you did add screening of evergreens, you could do them right at this property line up here, so then the profile from far away is actually going to probably help screen it right away. I think there was hesitancy from the applicant to put it this far back, and I think he's looking actually to put it up in this area right here. Is that correct?
Is that where he had indicated where he wants it?
Yeah, up in the front.
Actually, if you go a little bit further west where his arrow is, keep going west where that arrow. No.
The pointer.
Right there. There's some fuel tanks. I put it flush with them fuel tanks. Keep going a little west. You're not, yeah, right there. That's where it would go. So the driveway's right there, and then we go 55 feet off the driveway, and about 42 feet or so wide from the fuel tanks to the south. So then I have everything, and you got to make it convenient, and so you can't drive in the mud. And out there in that pasture, it'd all be mud. So that's all pasture.
So how far would that be from the property line? Looks like a fair distance.
It was 55 feet from the rear property line from here. From Mequon Road, that would be 385 feet.
I'm more concerned from the neighbor. And it would run east-west?
That is what we're trying to get him to, make sure that it's oriented in that direction.
I'm trying to keep it furthest to the west there, because there's this row of trees already planted in that corner. Some big trees that would cover it from his house or where he lives there to the south. And there's some other pine trees that are growing, so we just put a row of trees in there, and you wouldn't see it in a few years. But back on the other side, if I go east, my other neighbor, I can't put it in a pasture way over. It would be impractical to get at.
Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Well, okay, so regarding location, and that was my concern because I was confused on the measurements based on the drawing. Now, if you take that white arrow and move west, you'll see that row where those fuel tanks are. And, okay, see the green fuel tanks there. Okay. Now, go up. Okay, right there is actually 30 feet west or east of the western property line. That row of trees is actually not the property line. That gravel road is partially our property.
You can barely
So-
see it right here, but that
Right.
is the property line.
Property line's right closer to that. It's actually about 12 feet off of that corner of that large pole shed. But if you could put it roughly straddle where the fuel tanks are, which is actually kind of a concern. Maybe the fuel tanks should be enclosed at this time as well. But if you could straddle it there, and also what you may want to do is put the entrance there, so as you're pulling down the road, you can pull right into it rather than run it east and west. So that would shrink the east-west dimension by another 10 feet. So that would be more conducive.
Actually, that's 55 feet off the property line, not 30 feet. But it's 55 feet from the property line to the north side of the structure, right where that arrow is. That'd be 55 feet there.
So using that green fuel tank, where is the proposed building site?
Straight south. There's a red one there, a gas tank. Keep going. Right there, we'd start, and right there, we'd finish.
Okay, so that line you just put, is that
And the rest of it's all pasture, it's not driveway on the west side, there's a fence there.
Okay,
To
so
the
that,
east is not is pasture.
So this is
the
50
line you
feet.
just wrote, is that the center of the building, the west side of the building, or the east side of the building?
The north side of the
That's the
building is
north.
55 feet off the property line.
So your building would go where your planter is sitting right now,
Where the planter is?
or to the other side?
Right there, where the arrow is. Right where that arrow.
That'd be the west.
Correct, the west side.
Okay.
And I'll go,
We need a east
Actually,
and a west dimension. It's 40 feet or possibly 50 feet.
Jack, can you draw a box?
Yes, let's draw a
So,
box.
like, we know what we're talking about. And then we should limit the back and forth a little bit, I think.
Well, yeah, this is an odd case, so I'm rolling with it.
Okay, all right.
You're what?
Yeah, you haven't allowed it in the past, so I just didn't want it to stick up for you.
That he's rolling with it. We don't normally go back and forth.
It's usually not a dialogue, but this is, it's highly unusual. We have a hand-drawn plan and there's some ambiguity about where the building will actually go, so.
Yeah, it's not letting me draw on this for some reason. This is a county site, but this should be what it does. I can draw a line, but.
So let's draw a line where it starts.
So this is roughly about where I'm assuming he's talking about, right? Like,
Exactly what I want.
so it's about, give or take some feet here. This is kind of the area, right?
Okay, so that western boundary of the building, right where that arrow is, that's already 30 feet into our property line. Just so we're clear, the gravel road, the property line doesn't start where those trees are.
Property line, you can see it's this, it's just right here. This is, and again, this is.
I'm not worried about that property line, I'm worried about east-west directions. Right there where that arrow is, that's.
This is the corner. Again, this is GIS, it's not survey grade, but it should be within a foot or so.
Okay. So why can't you take that building there, that square you drew, and rotate it?
That was our recommendation, that this would be rotated so that the shorter length would be on the north side.
Correct.
So you rotate that
And you could
Rotate it.
90 degrees?
Yep.
Yeah.
It functionally just changes which side you drive in, because you can only go in the short end.
Well, on your proposal, you said you didn't want neighbors to see the entrance, but I'd be fine with that if you could turn it, because then you could drive right down the gravel and drive right into it, because that would cut another 10 feet off of the building going east.
So is the
Yeah, do you have a problem if it goes the other way?
Well, there's no way you drive, there's no gravel there. You drive in, see where the planter and the big tractor is. You drive, now you
It's all
drive.
gravel right there.
You drive straight in, off the gravel, into that shed. There's no more additional, you can drive where that, you would drive straight east into the shed. If you put it to the north, then I'd have to put a driveway in.
No, you wouldn't.
Okay, we're gonna stop the back and forth.
Well,
Sorry.
actually, no, you're correct. I see what you're saying. But you're already driving onto mud inside the building.
Actually,
All right, let's.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut the back and forth now.
same comments.
Thank you.
You can sit.
You
could
yeah,
probably sit down.
please sit. Yeah. Well, okay, we've got the location nailed down. I guess we have to decide if everything to the east of the fuel tanks is not gravel, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So you're trying to keep the entrance on the gravel to not have more gravel.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Any comments from the commission? I don't know if there's any way to make this perfect.
Well, again, I know it's a little bit of expense, but there's no reason why you can't add additional gravel there to make that driveway a little longer to get it so it's orientated so north to south.
So orientating it north to south gives it a less exposure view from the neighboring property. That's the point,
yes.
right?
The idea is to get our equipment in. Our equipment's 50 feet long. And how are you gonna turn on the north side? You have to come in on the north side of the fuel tanks, come in, put a driveway in, and go south, and then make the corner without putting so much more gravel in. You're just putting more hard surface down. Yeah.
You'd be putting more gravel in.
Yeah, and now we can come in, grade it off, not change the landscaping as far as the gravel or the dirt, and just pull in our equipment when we come in. And otherwise we have to move tanks, so we can't go south with the building, because that's where, you go right in that corner, that's the cattle yard again. They go in and out that, so you can see the animals sitting there. They go through that, there's a fence on that.
Well, that would be a pretty tight turning movement.
Yeah, with our equipment, you can't see that piece of equipment, that's the planter and the tractor.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think we've established where the building is. And it's probably not perfect, but I don't know that you could feasibly do it any other way and have it be usable. Commissioner Jensis.
I keep coming back to what I think I mentioned in our last discussion. This would be an accessory building added to an existing farming operation where there's already a pole barn, several other elements of an existing farming operation. The issue of color schemes and so forth, I understand that being a concern, and to the extent that the applicant's willing to address that issue, I still come back to the fact that while this is unusual, and it's certainly, we don't like having to address these types of situations, it is an accessory building used by an existing farming operation. I don't have a problem with that. I think that would be consistent with the existing use. If it's done in a fashion that's consistent with the industry, and I agree with Commissioner Lemke's comment, I've seen these types of buildings driving around in farming areas. I would not be opposed to that location or that.
I just want to make sure, I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from, and I agree, in this case, it seems fairly obvious, but this requirement applies to anybody that has 10 acres, basically, that they're doing some sort of agricultural. So, if you want to somehow make a motion that you're allowing this based on some criteria that it's only going to relate to this type of farming activity, I think that's something you might want to do, because there's nothing prohibiting someone that has 10 acres that just has a cornfield that would come in and ask for this same thing, and they're allowed to do it under the same exact criteria in the code.
And, but one other question on that. So Mr. Hilgendorf stops farming and the property is sold and somebody buys that and they don't, what happens with that structure?
We haven't really required anybody to remove any existing agricultural buildings on farmland when it's converted over to residential.
So I could just.
So it could stay for somebody, unfortunately what we've seen is some of these get used as storage facilities that they rent out to people to put their boats and campers and things like that.
I do have a question on that. What is the city's, what if the canvas starts to rip on this and Mr. Hilgendorf's not farming anymore? What's our recourse to get this taken down at that point?
Well, we would, if there was something that, like, the neighbor would probably have to complain. Obviously, we wouldn't see this from anywhere. So if there was a complaint about the condition of it, we would send an order to correct. And if they corrected it, then they would be able to keep it. But if they wouldn't correct it, they have the option to remove it at that point.
And staff has put in recommendations for criteria of getting it replaced in a certain time
That was
period.
addressed, I think, in the approval. Well, if someone's worried about what this could turn into, if the property turns over and it isn't a heavy agricultural use, that could certainly be part of a motion that structure could be, if the property transaction should be taken down when it changes hands, if it's not going to stay agricultural in nature. I think that would be appropriate.
Sure, I have no problem. That's why I want to put this up, because who knows how long I'm going to be, because there's not another generation coming. Rick can know that. There's no more generations coming in Mequon.
So I think that would be a good part of the
I
motion.
also think to fix part of that problem is the motion should state because of existing agricultural buildings on site. We wouldn't want somebody to just put this up on their 10 acres. This is a working farm with agricultural buildings. That's why we're allowing this in.
So are we gonna make a motion? You wanna craft
That
it?
sounded like we're halfway through the motion.
Because I'm ready to say second.
I will make a motion to approve with staff recommendations, with the note that we are approving this due to existing agricultural operation that already has agricultural buildings on site.
At the location shown on the screen.
At the
during
approximate
meeting.
location shown on scene.
And you want to add
Second.
the part that we just talked about too?
Yes, and a stipulation that if this site is no longer involved in agriculture, the building should come down.
Second, if you need it.
There's a
I thought
motion
I
and
heard
a
a second.
second. Okay.
I'll accept the amendment.
Within feet.
Within
It's-
feet of what was shown on this.
This is unfortunately not scientific, but it's very, very close.
You have a neighbor who's worked with you really well. Nothing.
Okay,
I think given the info we have, that's the best we could nail it down. If there's disagreement about that exact location, we could work that out with staff.
Right.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully we won't have to come back about any of the details. Brings us to our last item of the evening. Stephen Perry Smith for Foxtown Brewing. The applicant is seeking a master sign plan approval for the property located at 6209 West Mequon Road. Is Jack handling this one?
Yes, I am.
Give us a quick overview,
Sure.
please.
So this is a master sign plan request for what we call Building D, which now has a name, and we'll get to that in a second. This is the building that is the old lumber property right off the railroad tracks on Mequon Road. I will go into the details on the different types of signage that they're proposing and what requires deviation from the code. The first ones I'll go into right away is the first two you see on the screen. They're proposing two basically arch gateway signs, one called the Fox Yard, one called Fox Yard Station. Foxtown Station would go in the front of the building, basically as shown here up in this front corner, and then the Fox Yard would be in their parking lot entering into their area, which is the Fox Yard. So I guess a couple of things with these. These are considered a monument sign, which are in exceedance of the code requirement. We have our town center requirement is only 6 feet in height, so these are obviously well above that. Again, staff has, in theory, I feel that these are viable signs for these locations, but we just don't. Well, number one, we don't support the decorative iron. Many of you may recall the beautiful Savior Cemetery fence that was approved a number of months back. It kind of reminded us of that. And there really is not a lot of that ornate metal detail on the building. So the applicant did provide us some updated drawings, which I'll get to in a second. But we would not support these as shown. And the other concern is the one that is located in the front, we would like to see further off the right of way, and so that it's clear that it's in the private realm versus the public realm. There is a promenade here with alternating lights and trees, so we know we can't push it back too far, but I also have an updated plan that shows it about another 6-7 feet back from what they're showing out here, which is a good location, we believe. In terms of the rest of the signage, there's a number of on-building signs. This use of this building is considered multi-tenant because there's 3 separate functioning areas. On the north end of the building is the Opitz Hall. In the middle is the Ice House, and then on the south side is the Zimmerman Hall. They're showing signs, and they have them showing up in here. They're all a little bit different, but they're consistent with the architecture of the building. The largest one is roughly 30 square feet. On the east and north and south elevation, we're okay with what they're proposing. The north elevation, which faces Mequon Road, has the Opitz Hall sign below, and then the Foxtown Station building identification above. On the south, they have the same thing with the Foxtown Station, and then the Zimmerman sign on this side. So we're good with that elevation. West elevation, again, they show a sign. It's probably hard to read on here. I can kind of zoom in a little bit. They show the Opitz Hall identification area, and then there's also the ice house. So Opitz is located roughly over this doorway. Then you have the ice house sign over the center section, and then there's a Zimmerman sign over here. So we're okay with those as well. They make sense. They're over the door location. The only issue that we have is the east elevation. They're showing a Zimmerman sign in this location, and then they're showing a Foxtown building identification over here. And this is basically to capture traffic off the interurban, which is a public space, and we're supportive of the sign, but we actually think the Foxtown Station larger sign should be in this location. There shouldn't be a Zimmerman sign. There's really not, it's not over a doorway entrance, and we just don't feel that that sign is necessary on this elevation. And now I guess I'll get to some of the changes that they've sent us today. So this is an updated location showing where that sign on Mequon Road would be located. So basically 6 to 7.5 feet back, which is about 20 feet off the sidewalk. The signs change. What they're proposing is more in character with the building, and staff really does like them, and not because it was partially our idea. We think overall they're nice. The one concern we have is that it is still a fairly massive sign. This is about 20 feet to the top, which is about the size of the same gable off the Opitz Hall. And so I think we would be supportive of it if these sections did not branch out so far and these brackets came in a little bit, so that the truss structure actually started about here and came up here and came back down. That would lower that sign to probably about 4 or 5 feet. It wouldn't be so massive. It would be about 15 feet high, which I think is a better scale. So that we would be supportive of these signs with that location of that truss being lowered and some of those end pieces coming in. We can work with them on that going forward. But other than that, we are supportive of the request according to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the commission? Or does the applicant have any comments about staff's recommendations?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Jack, for the ideas. No, we actually took to heart what Jack was saying, and so we revisited the design of this. And the only thing I would say in terms of what's being proposed is the size of those brackets, or corbels, if you want to call them, are exactly the same that's on the building. If you look at the building, so everything is a derivative of what's currently there. You won't really be able to see, and maybe you can zoom in, and maybe not. But again, the proportion, when we're looking at this, everything was keeping within the same proportion. And so I hear what he's saying. My concern is, at the end of the day, when you look at what this project is, I'd hate to see it become too diminutive in scale. It's 20 feet versus 15 feet. 15 feet on that site is not that big. It's an open structure, and so, I would respectfully ask that we keep it the size that it is, because I do think it's proportional to the building as well as to where it currently exists on the site. And again, if that's not acceptable to the Plan Commission, but we did look at trying to really relate, and really, again, it's Jack's suggestion, I think is a good suggestion, to have it relate to the building. And this architecture, to the degree you make it smaller, it will make it not necessarily relate as much. Even these are big timbers. They're 12-inch timber in terms of its dimension. And so as soon as you start making them smaller, they seem out of proportion for what they're carrying. And so, I looked at it last night during the game while I was drawing it. And, we respectfully would ask if we could keep it this size. And again, if that's not acceptable, I'd be curious to see what maybe Marty would think in terms of his eye as a trained eye.
My trained eyes went away 3 years ago. No. I think I'd have to fall back on your expertise. I mean, looking at this, you want the same scale as the building. You're using the same elements of the building. 15 feet versus 20 feet at that location, that distance from the building. I would fall back on your expertise on that. Sorry, Jack.
I was sure you'd have a comment. Disappointed. Any other comments or questions from the commission? So we're really, everything's amenable. We're just talking about the details of this one item.
Well, I guess I didn't give me any feedback on the east side as well.
Is that the east side, I think, is a valid comment also. I haven't had Tom Neiman's thoughts on it yet, but I can see where, you know, the suggestion of actually having Foxtown Station be at the location where we're showing it being Zimmerman, that actually makes a lot of sense. And you can see it. I think it's important that we do get that identity. And so I think that we could acquiesce to that suggestion. I think, again, the comments, we appreciate working with staff. And they've always had good comments. And again, this is not being argumentative at all. We're saying, yeah, that's a good idea. The reducing the size, I would respectfully ask that we allow it to stay the same size it currently is.
Commissioner Strelchak.
I think everything in here is just outstanding. Every day I drive by the Foxtown development, I'm impressed with the quality of work that's being done, the tasteful selection of everything from exterior building materials to what you're doing with the signage here today. I'm supportive of the larger sign, or the larger, as Foxtown is recommending, with the larger timbers. I think it balances out well. I wish other Mequon developments would have some of these larger timbers. I've encouraged it with other projects and asked for it, and I got a little bit on it, but I didn't get it all. Thank you for your hard work and your care for the quality of this project within our community. It's just fantastic. So you have my full support for everything that staff recommends, as well as the updated, what do we want to call them? Entryway features?
Gateway monument sign. Yeah, gateway entryway. Thank you very much for the compliments. Appreciate that very much. And again, credit goes to Tom Neiman for having the vision and the pocketbook to fund these things. So, the project is, we're all very fortunate to have an owner like Tom Neiman put the type of investment he's made into this community. I've lived here for 35 years, and just watching what's happened, we're honored to be a part of it. And all I can tell you is when you see the inside of these buildings, it's going to blow you away. It's spectacular.
So I'll make a motion to approve. With, is we ready for a motion?
Yeah.
We're always ready for a motion.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve with staff's recommendations on the east side and the larger side dimensions of, what were the dimensions?
For the gateway.
For the gateway.
The gateway as the applicant presented.
As the applicant presented.
Second.
So we get some on both sides.
So there's a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, since it's the last item, let's call the roll just for dramatic effect.
Just for fun? Okay. Commissioner Bach.
Aye.
Commissioner Becky Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemke.
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley. Commissioner Gentis.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Mayor Durbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
That passes, and can't say enough about what's gone on there so far, and looking forward to seeing the end product.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration. And
Thank you.
I'm excited to see it be finished. It's been a long time coming.
It has.
Thank you
We're
very much.
excited. Thank you. Next up, we have announcements. The next meeting is Monday, October 17th, 6 o'clock right here. And
Motion to close.
there's a motion to adjourn,
Second.
I think, in a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned.